Shinichi Izumi wakes up with a bizarre feeling in his right hand, and on his way to school it gropes fellow student Satomi Murano. While Shinichi slept during the night, a parasite attempted to enter his body through his nose in order to control his brain. But since Shinichi sneezed before it got very far inside, it ended up burrowing into his right arm instead. While on his way home the next day, Shinichi tries to save little girl from being run over by a car, and he witnesses his right hand stop the car. Confused, he tries to stab his hand with a knife, but the parasite reveals its form on his hand and breaks the knife. Shinichi is now forced to cooperate with the parasite while keeping it a secret from his parents, Kazuyuki and Nobuko Izumi. Later, Shinichi's parasite directs him to a dog which has been inhabited by another parasite, and he is shown that the only way to kill it is to destroy the heart of its host. Shinichi's parasite gives itself the name Migi, meaning right. After Shinichi impresses Satomi Murano by making the winning shot in a basketball game at school, Kazuki Nagai becomes jealous and picks a fight with Shinichi outside. Shinichi recoils in fear, but Migi forces him to fight back and punch Kazuki. Shinichi later hears from Yuko Takekawa that gruesome mincemeat murders are being reported in various locations around the world. He learns from Migi that parasites practice cannibalism for survival. Migi senses a parasite nearby controlling a man named Mr. B, and Shinichi heads to an alley to lead him away from other people. Mr. B invites Migi to join him in order to extend their lifelines, but Migi chooses to kill Mr. B and remain with Shinichi. The next day, after Shinichi treats Satomi to pancakes, they see three thugs throwing stones at a cat buried in a playground sandbox. Shinichi intervenes and stops them, surprising Satomi by his apparent change in personality. During a school assembly, Shinichi is dismayed to discover that the new math teacher, Ryoko Tamiya, is a parasite and aware of his secret. After class, Shinichi privately meets Ryoko in the counselor's office, where she declares that she is not interested in fighting and asks him to meet her after school. They meet at a restaurant where Ryoko introduces her partner Mistura and reveals that she is pregnant, establishing that parasites are capable of reproducing humans. The next day during class, Mistura enters the school campus, attacking staff and forcing the students to evacuate. Migi suggests using the crowd of students as a shield to ambush Mr. A, but Shinichi disagrees and runs to the top floor to lure Mistura away from the students. Migi reminds Shinichi that they must fight together as they are confronted by Mr. A. As Migi and Mistura exchange rapid attacks, Shinichi takes the opportunity to puncture Mistura in the chest with a metal table leg. Mortally wounded, Mistura tries to find Ryoko, but she sets off an explosion with gas tanks to kill him, and she escapes to safety. The pregnant and unmarried Ryoko is forced to resign from the school. Shinichi encounters her as she leaves, and she explains that every living organism follows a directive, and parasites were born to feast on humans. Meanwhile, Migi experiments with separating itself for short periods from Shinichi's body. Shinichi's parents, Kazuyuki and Nobuko, plan a trip to the beach, but although Shinichi worries about their safety because of the mincemeat murders, he reluctantly agrees that they should go. Following comments from his parents and friends, Shinichi suspects that he is undergoing psychological changes. When he sees a gang of delinquents led by Mitsuo assaulting Kazuki, Shinichi steps in and stops them, but takes a beating. Before the gang leaves, a female gang member named Kana Kimishima detects something frightening about his nature. After school, Mitsuo and his gang abduct Satomi, and Shinichi tries to intervene. But he is no match for Mitsuo because he refuses help from Migi. However, a senior student named Kamiju arrives with a large group of students to deal with Mitsuo and his gang. Later, after Satomi leaves, Kana shows up to apologize, but when she shakes hands, she again detects something strange and Migi deduces that Kana can sense parasite wavelengths. Meanwhile, a parasite which has been searching for a replacement female body attacks Nabuko and takes her body as its host before attacking Kazuyuki. Shinichi receives a call from his father warning him about his mother, but he is shocked when she arrives home and pierces Shinichi through the chest. After Nabuko leaves, Migi merges into Shinichi's body to seal the hole inside his heart and saves his life. Shinichi is informed that his father is in hospital and vows to kill the parasite controlling his mother. On the way there, he meets Makiko Hayes, a young student working at an inn near the hospital. At the hospital, Shinichi becomes angry when his father denies seeing a monster take his mother, and he realizes it is because his father is unable to face the truth. Shinichi stays at the nearby inn where Makiko works while planning to find the parasite responsible for his mother's death. Migi explains to Shinichi that since repairing his heart, its senses are inoperative while asleep. The following day, Migi senses a parasite nearby and Shinichi runs towards the end of the seawall, where he sees someone who may be responsible for Nabuko's death. Shinichi meets Mamoru Yuta, a human who has a parasite fused into his jaw, which saved him from drowning after falling off a cliff. Shinichi tells Mamoru how he first encountered Migi and how his father ended up in the hospital. Later, Migi explains to Shinichi that it had scattered cells throughout his body to close the heart wound, which explains his physiological changes. Mamoru senses Nabuko and Shinichi heads in her direction. However, Migi falls asleep after morphing into a scythe, leaving Shinichi to fight by himself. Mamoru is badly wounded by Nabuko, and Shinichi arrives to fight Nabuko alone. Nabuko wounds Shinichi, but Mamoru executes a surprise attack, killing Nabuko. After saying goodbye to Makiko, Shinichi returns to school. The heavily pregnant Ryoko assigns a parasite-controlled host to impersonate a student and keep an eye on Shinichi. Mitsuo suspects that Kana has a crush on Shinichi and picks a fight with him, but Shinichi uses his newfound strength to easily defend himself. Satomi observes that Shinichi has changed since his return, especially when he throws a dead puppy into a garbage bin. However, later, when Shinichi realizes that he has begun thinking like Migi, he gives the puppy a proper burial. At school, Shinichi encounters Hideo Shimada, the parasite sent by Ryoko disguised as a transfer student. However, Migi does not detect Hideo as a threat. Kana believes she detects Shinichi approaching, but it is Hideo instead. Shinichi arrives and warns Hideo to stay away from his friends, although Shinichi acknowledges that she has the ability to sense wavelengths of some types of people. That night, Hideo changes his face to look like Shinichi and lures a girl into an alley to feast on her body. Hideo wonders why Shinichi cannot always sense his presence and thinks his parasite may have a weakness. Takizawa, the chief of police, interviews Shinichi's father, Kazuyuki, about the parasite which attacked his mother Nabuko. Kazuyuki confirms her likeness in parasite's form in a sketch drawn by Haruki Takekawa, a criminal profiling illustrator and older brother of Yuko. Yuko has become suspicious of Hideo, and later, she witnesses Hideo being hit by a baseball but remaining uninjured. While attempting to patch things up with Satomi, Shinichi is interrupted by Migi, who senses Hideo preparing to take on Mitsuo and his gang. Shinichi dismisses Hideo and warns the gang and its leader, Yano, to leave Hideo alone. Later, Satomi maintains her distance because of Shinichi's changed personality. Meanwhile, Yuko follows Hideo and discovers his ability to change his face and shares her knowledge with her brother Haruki. The next day, Yuko confronts Hideo about his identity in the art classroom while keeping a bottle of paint thinner close at hand for protection. Yuko throws a bottle of paint thinner at Hideo when he attacks her, then jumps out the window to safety. The chemical causes Hideo to lose his mind and enter into an uncontrolled killing spree. An evacuation is initiated, but Shinichi re-enters the school, where he finds Satomi alive and takes her off campus to safety. Migi senses that Hideo is on the rooftop, so Shinichi travels to the roof of another building 300 meters away, where Migi helps him throws a rock through Hideo's chest, killing him. In the aftermath, 17 victims, including students, teachers, and policemen, are reported massacred by Hideo. At a high-level government meeting, they decide to keep the existence of Parasyte secret. A scientist named Dr. Yui reports that parasites can be identified by plucking hair from anywhere on the body to ascertain its physiology, because the hair stays alive for a short time. Consequently, a new form of greeting becomes popular, pulling out a strand of each other's hair. Shinichi finally patches things up with Satomi after she thanks him for saving her. Shinichi hesitates to tell Kana the truth about his condition, although she can detect his presence. However, when Satomi questions Kana about Shinichi's change in personality, Kana denies noticing any difference. Meanwhile, a parasite named Garu, disguised as a male wearing gym clothing, murders 22 armed members of a Yakuza organization, an experiment to test his fighting ability without resorting to parasite weaponry. Shinichi feels that Migi truly has merged with him, especially while on a date with Satomi when he experiences pain in his chest after seeing a mother about to slap her disobedient child. Kana becomes dejected after she witnesses Shinichi kissing Satomi goodbye after a date. Later, Migi senses 8 parasites at Takeshi Hirakawa's mayoral campaign promoting environmentalism. Although Hirakawa detects Shinichi's presence, Migi cannot identify the politician's motives. Shinichi and Migi discuss possibilities of why Hirakawa might be running for mayor and conclude that it would be to create a safe haven for parasites. Shinichi encounters Kana and becomes concerned that her ability may place her in danger. He arranges to meet her in an abandoned building while Migi is asleep and explains about parasites and Migi. But after she brushes it off as a joke, he promises to show Migi to her one day. Later, Migi reveals to Shinichi that Kana emits a rather weak signal detectable by parasites, meaning that they can also seek her out. Shinichi convinces Migi to reveal his true form when planning to meet with Kana, but he cancels the meeting after detecting parasites. Kana assumes that Shinichi will be at the abandoned building again and uses her instincts to track him. But instead, she finds a parasite who attacks her. The parasite stabs Kana through her chest just as Shinichi arrives. Shinichi rips out the host's heart in blind rage, and Kana dies in Shinichi's arms. At her funeral, Shinichi appears calm, placing his humanity in question. Hit the like button if you want the full recap of this anime. See you next one.